Night at 5 on CBS 6, another international partnership involving New York and microchip production.
Plus, a grant helps one local nonprofit changing lives in the simplest ways.
Millions of dollars in work somehow can't keep a busy road in Guilderland from ending up underwater, and you paid for it.
And despite the fall feel today, summer isn't over. It's still fair season. CBS 6 is live from the Washington County Fair.
CBS 6 News starts now with breaking news.
Good evening. We begin tonight with the loss of an Albany icon. Dr. Alice Green has passed away.
For decades, she was a civil rights activist. She founded Albany Center for Law and Justice. She was the Green Party candidate for New York Lieutenant Governor back in 1998. Our Brianna Sapardi is standing by live with more on the loss of this legend. Bree. All right, Bree, thank you for that. And again, for those of you just joining us here at 5, Albany civil rights advocate Dr. Alice Green has passed away. We'll have much more coverage tonight. Dr. Green, of course, an icon remembered for decades of work.
Such a huge loss for the community here. Now, I spoke with Green just a few months ago about her life's work. We'll share that conversation coming up tonight at 6.
Other news now, the semiconductor industry in the capital region taking another step forward with a new partnership overseas, this one in Japan.
Today, the governor of the Japanese island Hokkaido visiting the New York Creates facilities in Albany.
CBS 6's Emma Quinn joins us live from outside the campus. Emma, we learned today there are Japanese engineers training at New York Creates right there, right? All right, thank you, Emma. New tonight, more help on the way to a local organization aimed at improving the lives of those on the spectrum.
Families and community leaders joining together today, showing how something as simple as a shared meal can change lives for the better.
Dunk, flip, pan.
What's the recipe for a happy life? Meaningful work, friendships, or maybe a side of eggs and milk? All of the above being served up at Bring on the Spectrum in Albany today. The nonprofit helps neurodiverse people learn new skills and achieve their full potential. Founder Lisa Audie calling it her life's purpose.
My daughter is 13 years old. She's one of the students today. And, giving her and others the opportunity to access their community and to develop those skills, it brings me great joy.
Others like Elizabeth, a longtime participant who looks forward to each activity from Zumba to yoga, cooking, and more.
I want to learn how to cook at home so I can help my mom out at home. I love bots because I trust people here.
Nice. Beautiful.
Assemblymember Phil Stack also getting his hands dirty to support the mission through food.
Quite frankly, they're teaching the children how to crack an egg. I don't think I was ever taught the correct way to do it. There's probably occasionally a little bit of shell in my French toast.
And through this $25,000 grant to help keep the organization going for many years to come.
Almost $1 billion to the Buffalo Bills for building a new stadium. I don't know if that's the appropriate function of public money. I think public money is more sensibly expended trying to help our families.
Families like the ones here today. Everyone hopeful that as a result, the group here is leaving full with a hearty meal and so much more.
Our neurodiverse individuals just need understanding, right? Instead of continuing to ask them to join our world, which is noisy, chaotic, sensory overload, let's move closer to theirs.
For more information about Bring on the Spectrum and ways to help, visit this story at cbs6albany.com. Democrats in Chicago preparing for another night of getting their message out, rallying around Vice President Kamala Harris. We're expecting some big names to make the case for her to propel the party to another 4 years in the White House and lead the country into the future. Christine Frizzell is at the United Center for the Democratic National Convention.
Well, tonight we'll hear from
New York State's highest court saying a law that allows all registered voters to vote by mail is constitutional.
Yeah, the Early Mail Voter Act passed in 2023, sparking a lawsuit led by North Country Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik. The lawsuit was twice rejected by the courts, with the voting reform remaining in effect now going forward. In a statement reacting to that latest decision, the New York State Attorney General Letitia James called the right to vote a cornerstone of our nation and called the lawsuit a roadblock to stifle New Yorkers' constitutional right to vote. Governor Kathy Hochul called today's ruling a victory for democracy. Congresswoman Stefanik calling New York's court system corrupt and disgraceful and said judges claim to understand the Constitution more than its framers did 150 years ago. But again, vote by mail stays in New York.
Well, next here at 5, we'll head out live to the Washington County Fair to check in with CBS 6's Sam Copeland as he continues to make the rounds at local fairs this summer.
And coming up in sports, with a little more than a month until hockey season, it's time to meet the new leader of the Union women's hockey team. You'll meet the new head coach of the Garnet Chargers and what he had to say about year one's expectations.
It is certainly cool out there.
Well, I think we all know the Capital Region has no shortage of local and county fairs to attend this summer. This week it is the Washington County Fair.
There we go. A lot happening out there. Exciting times indeed. That's where we find our CBS 6's Sam Copeland live tonight. And Sam, you've been to a few local fairs so far, and I can't imagine it's an assignment that you get tired of, right?
It's true, Amani. At this point.
All right, thank you so much, Mr. LaPointe. Sports coming up next. Here's a look at what's ahead at 5:30.
The Harris and Trump campaigns competing for union voters in battleground states. I'm Atrell Nashar with a look at where these critical groups stand coming up.
More Americans are concerned about keeping their jobs. I'm Jeff Harris in Washington. Coming up, what experts say may be the leading reason why.
And don't forget, CBS 6 News is back later tonight with our 7 p.m. broadcast. Catch the CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell at 6:30. And after, join JT Fetch and Steve LaPointe for your only source for local news and weather at 7.
All right, thank you, AJ. As always, I'm back at 6 o'clock, but don't go anywhere. JT joins Amani next for more news at 5:30.
That's right, and a preview of tonight's CBS 6 Rewind, a religious group playing a big role in baseball history here in the Capital Region. Plus, mosquito season is getting longer and it's increasing concern about disease. What doctors say you need to know and how you can protect yourself.
CBS 6 News starts now.
And first at 5:30, your top stories and weather headlines. Here's what you need to know.
The semi-chip conductor industry in the Capital Region is taking another step forward with the new partnership overseas in Japan. Rapidus is a Japanese-based semi-chip manufacturing company. They've been learning from New York Creates and are looking to take our models and implement them overseas.
New York State's highest court saying a law allowing all registered voters to vote by mail is constitutional. The Early Mail Voter Act passed in 2023, sparking a lawsuit led by North Country Republican Congresswoman Elise Stefanik.
The Washington County Fair enters its second day. Meteorologist Sam Copeland was live this evening from the fair with all of this week's activities with much nicer weather than yesterday.
In-depth coverage of all these stories online. Just head to CBS6Albany.com.
We're following breaking news. The loss of an Albany icon, Dr. Alice Green, has passed away. For decades, she was a civil rights activist. She founded Albany's Center for Law and Justice, and she was the Green Party candidate for New York Lieutenant Governor in 1998. CBS 6's Brianna Zupardi joining us now live from outside the Center for Law and Justice. And Bree, how are people reacting to this news? Amani, such a big loss for the community there. Bree, thank you. A union on strike at Cornell University in Western New York as students arrive for a new fall semester. The UAW Local 2300, which represents about 1,200 employees, went on strike yesterday after a deadline to negotiate a new labor deal with the university passed at midnight. They represent dining hall staff, custodial workers, maintenance mechanics, and groundkeepers, to name a few.
We should not have members who are seeking Cornell's food banks. We should not have members who are seeking Section 8. Our members should be able to come to work with dignity and go home with dignity.
The university says it has offered union employees a 17.5% pay bump over the 4-year contract and a change in time promotion. Its lowest paid employees would get an immediate 10% increase. The union says it's prepared to continue its strike into next week when classes start. Liz, thank you. One person is dead and another in the hospital following a car crash. It happened on River Road in Selkirk last night. Police say Jacqueline Parker of Troy was driving when her vehicle crossed the yellow line and crashed into an oncoming car. That other driver, Colleen Selkirk, died at the scene. Parker was sent to the hospital and is expected to recover. The crash remains under investigation, but charges could be filed.
Now to a crisis in the classroom.
Still to come, the FBI now confirming who's behind the hacking of former President Trump's campaign.
Why it's putting a spotlight on growing foreign threats to American elections.
Israeli leaders accepting a proposal for a ceasefire in Gaza, according to Secretary of State Antony Blinken.
And Secretary Blinken, who is in the region, says Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu endorsed a U.S. plan intended to bring Israel and Hamas to a final agreement. On Monday, Blinken urged Hamas leaders to accept it and end the fighting. But one Hamas official told CBS News they, quote, didn't receive any new proposals.
The president put forward a proposal with Qatar and with Egypt to try to bridge the gaps that remain between the parties so that we could get agreement to what the president put out there a couple of months ago. In a very constructive meeting with Prime Minister Netanyahu today, he confirmed to me that Israel accepts the bridging proposal.
Meanwhile, this morning, Israel's army says it recovered the bodies of 6 hostages held by Hamas since its deadly attack on October 7th. There's new information tonight about the Trump campaign hack the FBI has confirmed came from Iran.
It's not the only campaign Iran was targeting. Angela Brown with the National Desk reports from Washington.
Iran was already much warmer conditions, in fact, above average temperatures once again into the mid-80s.
All right, Steve, thank you. Coming up at 6 tonight on CBS 6, the town of Guilderland-Stuyvesant Plaza flooding again.
After heavy downpours yesterday, we break down how much has gone into improving infrastructure at the plaza with little luck.
Plus, semiconductor chips getting a new boost in New York. How an overseas partnership is making that happen. Americans are becoming worried that they will lose their job.
That's according to a new survey just released by the Federal Reserve Bank of New York. Jeff Harris with the National Desk explains why fears continue to grow.
Part of the reason is
Mosquito Day, bringing attention to mosquito-borne illnesses. Scientists say climate change means a longer mosquito season, which could increase the risk of disease.
And this comes after a recent positive test from a mosquito in Pittsfield for West Nile virus. Natalie Brand looks at some ways you can protect yourself. Greg Floyd is up next, and still to come tonight, more help on the way for those on the spectrum.
How a simple meal is helping change lives for the better. News, Greg.
All right, thank you so much for that, Bree. From sleeping in a barn to visits with the president at the White House, Dr. Green led quite the life. Amani is here right now. You sat down with Dr. Green earlier this year.
I did, Greg. Now, she told me her journey is a testament that it's not only where you've been, but also where you're headed and everything in between that defines you.
We have people power.
Dr. Alice Green's lifetime commitment to civil justice work started when she was just a child, born out of a traumatic experience at her first job in the Adirondacks.
My first job as a teenager, and I was separated from the other staff, told that I had to live in a barn while the other staff lived in the luxury housing connected to this restaurant and motel. That made a very deep impression upon me, and especially since my great-grandmother had been born enslaved and thought to be like animal.
Disturbed but in need of money to help support her family, Green decided to stay.
After sleeping there one night with bats, I decided that I was being treated like someone who was not human.
In the morning, Green confronted her employer, telling her the discrimination was wrong and that she deserved the same accommodations as her white coworkers. She was then fired and had to make the 40-mile walk back home.
I made a commitment to myself as I walked 40 miles that I would do whatever I could to make sure that poor people and people of color were not treated like they were not human.
That experience and those of her enslaved great-grandmother leading Green to go on to receive a doctorate in criminal justice and 3 master's degrees in education, social work, and criminology before opening up the Center for Law and Justice in Albany in 1985.
My family pushed me into education, which was one of the things that allowed me to be somewhat free.
Green and her work even being honored by former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama at the White House.
Not everybody agrees with what we do because we're always challenging the system to treat people equally.
Green hopes her story encourages women this month and all year long to take a stand, and believes that if her great-grandmother could see all of her accomplishments today, from the barn house to the White House, that she'd be proud.
You've got to believe in yourself.
Now, Green's other accomplishments include founding the African American Cultural Center and working as the Deputy Commissioner for the State Division of Probation and Correctional Alternatives. Greg.
You know, I've been doing this for more than 40 years. It's hard for me to imagine the city of Albany or the local news landscape without Dr. Alice Green.
Sure. I mean, really a remarkable person and a huge loss for the community, and she will be missed.
Yeah, we'll have more tonight. Thank you very much for that, Amani. Yeah.